Welcome to As the Key Turns. I'm David Lehman, and I'd like to talk about the ramifications of Clayton Fountain. He murdered a guard on October the 22nd, 1983, along with a guy named Silverstein who killed the first one that day. And there were ramifications that happened after that. And that's what I'd like to talk about from at least the inmates' side. What I did is I found during my research for this series on Fountain a document that was from a place called the Fortune News in the spring of 1984. And in this article, you'll hear him discuss an inmate that was murdered, which was Jack Callison, and he was killed in dog unit on the 27th of October 1983. This was just a few days after the killing of the two guards. And he claims, I'll let him tell you himself. He says, "Dear editor, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and ensure domestic tranquility, USP Marion has been placed on a seemingly indefinite lockdown. On October 22nd, 1983, two guards were killed. As a result of that incident, guards were brought in from other federal institutions. On the 27th of October, a prisoner was killed. It was then the administration put into effect phase one of its plan. Mr. Leach, executive assistant to the warden Miller, gathered a bunch of guards and waited on the next unit going to the chow hall. Warden Miller was also present. The killing of the guards happened in H unit. The killing of the prisoner happened in D unit. The unit selected for the confrontation was the C unit. Anyway, as the C unit was on its way to eat, Mr. Leach started a shakedown. Mr. Leach officiously insisted in joining in the activity, verbally berating the prisoners as he did so. Mr. Leach insisted on reshaking down of prisoners. If his objective was to be intimidating, then it worked because he grabbed a prisoner and a brief free-for-all ensued. The fray was brief because a surprising number of guards with clubs arrived to assist and aid in regaining control. Warden Miller was observed on the location. The reason why has yet to be established. It is of interest to note that Marion had an 8 p.m. lock-in. However, the C unit was not let out for chow until after 7 p.m. At this time, the entire population was already locked in. After the C unit was locked in, the beatings started. Now we are dealing with a 6-to-1 ratio. Every prisoner was taken from his cell by a group of officers wearing goon squad attire. That's helmets, heavy gloves, and boots, and carrying 3-foot-long clubs fitted with steel beads on the ends. These guards systematically beat and brutalized the entire population of the prison one by one in what was termed a security shakedown of all units. Many of the outside guards were from Terre Haute, Indiana, Oxford, Wisconsin, Talladega, Florida, El Reno, Oklahoma, and Milan, Michigan. The attack squads, A-Team, were vocal, purposely brutal, and extremely intimidating. We were hit, pushed, manhandled, constantly threatened, and cursed. Those of us who were seriously brutalized were taken out in the hallway and later dragged to the hole. Attorneys associated with the Marion Prisoners' Rights Project were told, peremptorily, that they would not be allowed in the institution on their requested days. They were told that November 11, 1983 was a holiday and Dean Leach, executive assistant, was not available to authorize the visits. Under law, attorney visits do not require authorization. When several lawyers came to the prison despite the earlier denial, Saturday morning, November 12th, a large contingent of uniformed officers physically barred the lawyers from entering the prison. The lawyers were not permitted to enter the prison until late Tuesday, November the 15th, after U.S. District Judge James Beatty, following an order from U.S. Court of Appeals judge, indicated he would sign an order requiring entry if the prison administration did not allow the lawyers in voluntarily. Now, in addition to the grim mass assaults of October, November, and isolated incidents in December, the continuing threats and abuse, the abolition of human visits, and constant freezing temperatures, several windows are broken, the Miller, Cohane, Leach team has effectively ended any meaningful educational, cultural, and recreational programs, closed the law library, prohibited any meal time and outdoor contact and relaxation and religious observances. The attacks followed a series of similarly misguided anti-human decisions and perverse acts of repression by the Marion administration under Warden Miller, including, but not limited to, torture and beating of 8 prisoners in H and I Unit in April 1980, the false ban against the People's Rights Project lawyers in 1980 and 81, and the lockdown twice for work stoppage in 1979 and 80. Now there is complete inactivity, unambiguous outrage, manifold grievous physical, emotional, and constitutional injury and deprivation among the prisoners at Marion. Also, humanly destructive, potentially disastrous, hate-filled tension at the prison, all provoked and brought out by a brutish regime which brooks no restraint on its vindictive power. The excesses of this arrogant administration and the Gestapo-like techniques inflicted upon hundreds of men in retribution for the acts of only 2 can be ended only by forceful, concerted action from outside the Bureau of Prisons. If the rule of law and humane values is not to be substantially and permanently diminished by this hellish exercise, the courts and also the Congress, the press, the churches, and all the people of conscience must intervene. I personally have witnessed abuses. I also have been assaulted. Marion, on the whole, has become one large administrative segregation unit. The only existing classes are administrative segregation and punitive segregation. Well, that was his opinion. I remember having conversations with officers after these incidents had taken place. And some of what this guy says is correct, but in my opinion it was well deserved. And I've noticed that we haven't had any other officers murdered at Marion since the lockdown. So apparently it was rather effective. Now, of course, you can have another opinion. The reason I'm doing this video is somebody wanted to hear this kind of, what will we call it, this type of stuff, where I talk about the things that had occurred that may not have been completely above board, or the real things that happened inside of Marion. And yes, I personally have known of incidences such as he describes, which happened many years after the lockdown was in place. I tend to believe some of what this inmate has claimed, and it was backed up by testimony in Congress. And there's a famous video out there by another guard where he claims that this is exactly what happened. So, of course, I wasn't there. I wasn't a witness to any of that. Just bringing it to you for your enjoyment and perusal. I've done videos on this very incident that sparked all this retribution with Clayton and Silverstein and the 2 officers that were murdered, as well as the other inmates. And I'll continue to do some more videos. I've released a lot of documents, hundreds of pages of documents, of one of which this is one of them, on this incident. And that's on patreon.com/asthekeyturns, and you can join for as little as $1 a month and watch a weekly video as opposed to the few videos that I put out on YouTube. I wanted to add this one little piece here at the end extremely quickly. I get told all the time that I'm making a fortune and that the inmates are suffering as a consequence of this fortune I'm making. Well, here's what I'm making. It's under $70 a month on average, and I have noticed that recently, every time I release a video, I lose a lot of subscribers. Not really sure exactly what that's about. Had some theories that maybe YouTube is canceling some of them. Had some theories on my own that perhaps I'm just irritating the hell out of some of you folks. And that was pretty much it. And as always, hit the like button down there, will you? Don't be an ass. And thanks for watching.